Beneath the shifting sands of the Sahara lies a city erased from history. This is the story of a lost metropolis and the forgotten people who built it. You will uncover the complete narrative of this vanished civilization, from its sudden disappearance to the modern quest to find it. How could an entire city simply vanish? And what catastrophic secret does the desert keep? We will explore why a sophisticated society collapsed and what its fate reveals about our own world. What does it truly mean for a civilization to be lost to time? For centuries, the nomadic Tuareg people have spoken of a city of ghosts in the deep desert. Their legends describe a place they call Zerzura, a white city cradled by an oasis, where birds were made of stone and fountains flowed in the central square. These are not just campfire tales, but a persistent oral history repeated across countless generations. The stories are remarkably consistent, detailing a metropolis of immense wealth and advanced knowledge. They tell of a great queen who commanded the winds and a civilization that could read the stars like a map. At first glance, this sounds like pure fantasy, a mirage of the human imagination. But historians understand that myths are rarely born from nothing. They are often the echoes of real events, distorted over centuries of retelling, yet preserving a fragile kernel of truth. Think of the Trojan War, long dismissed as poetic invention until Heinrich Schliemann uncovered the ancient city of Troy. The legend of the lost oasis functions in the same way. It is a cultural memory, a ghostly imprint of something that once truly existed. The very fact that this story is shared among different tribes across a vast and unforgiving landscape suggests a common origin in a shared, traumatic experience. What catastrophic event could have been so monumental that its memory survived for millennia, transforming from history into myth? The fantastical details, the streets of gold and the stone birds, are likely embellishments, but they point toward a reality that was, in its own right, extraordinary. This legend is our first and most vital clue, a map drawn not on parchment but in the collective memory of a people. It sets the stage for a real-world detective story, challenging us to separate fact from fiction and follow the trail of whispers into the silent, waiting sands. The legend of Zerzura found an unexpected echo in the dusty pages of medieval libraries. While the Tuareg stories were passed by word of mouth, Arab geographers and historians were meticulously writing down what they knew of the world. One of the most compelling figures was Al-Idrisi, a 12th century scholar working in the court of a Sicilian king. In his monumental work, The Book of Roger, he describes a place called the City of Brass, a metropolis of immense wealth whose inhabitants were turned to stone, seemingly in an instant. His descriptions of its location in the vast, empty lands of the desert align hauntingly well with the Tuareg legends of a city where birds were made of stone. Other writers spoke of Wabar, a city destroyed by fire from the heavens for the arrogance of its people. The consistent theme is a sophisticated society that met a swift and catastrophic end, often interpreted by these ancient authors as an act of divine punishment. But we must read these accounts not as theology, but as journalism from a distant time. These men were recording the best information available to them, stories from traders and travelers who dared to cross the sands. The details of a great sandstorm or a consuming fire are not just moral fables. They are likely the only vocabulary available to describe a real cataclysmic disaster. The written word gives us something the oral tradition cannot, a fixed point in time. We can date these manuscripts, creating a timeline that pushes the memory of this city back centuries. Even more telling are the maps from these eras. Cartographers, working with limited information, sometimes drew vast rivers or great lakes in the middle of what is now the most arid part of the Sahara. For a long time, these were dismissed as simple errors, the guesses of men who had never seen the land. But what if the maps were not wrong, but were instead ancient? What if they were depicting a reality from a much older time, a green Sahara that had not yet turned to dust? These cartographic anomalies are not mistakes, they are paleo-memories, snapshots of a lost world. A city of brass mentioned in a 1,000-year-old book, a river drawn on a vellum map where today there is only sand. These fragments are the first hard evidence. They transform the legend from a campfire story into a historical hypothesis. They give us a region to search and a reason to believe that the desert is hiding more than just sand. The clues on parchment were compelling, but to find the truth, we had to go into the desert and let the stones speak for themselves. This transformation of the Sahara from a green paradise to a barren desert is the key to the entire mystery. To grasp how a city could be so completely erased, you must first comprehend the sheer scale of the environmental catastrophe that unfolded. The world it existed in was nothing like the sea of dunes we see today. Between 5,000 and 10,000 years ago, this was a land of sprawling savannas, dotted with deep freshwater lakes and crisscrossed by flowing rivers. Herds of elephants, giraffes, and antelope roamed grasslands that stretched to the horizon. This was the Green Sahara, a period of incredible abundance that created the perfect conditions for sophisticated societies to put down roots and build something permanent. The evidence for this lost world is etched into the land itself. Scientists studying past climates, a field called paleoclimatology, have pulled core samples from ancient lakebeds, finding fossilized pollen from grasses and trees that could never survive here now. They have studied cave paintings in the middle of the desert that vividly depict people swimming and hunting animals that require vast amounts of water. This was not a fleeting wet spell, it was a stable, thriving ecosystem. So what happened? The Earth breathes in slow, cosmic rhythms. A gradual shift in our planet's orbit, a wobble on its axis, brought this African humid period to a close. The rains began to fail century by century. The grasslands withered, the lakes shrank into salt pans, and the rivers vanished back into the earth. The desert did not arrive in a single, violent storm, but as a relentless, creeping invasion. For a civilization built on the certainty of water, this was a death sentence written over hundreds of years. Imagine the slow, grinding desperation. Crops would have failed with increasing frequency. The Great Lakes that sustained trade and travel would have become muddy puddles, then cracked earth. The very ground beneath their feet was turning to dust. This is the profound irony. The sands that now conceal every trace of the city are the same sands that caused its downfall. The desert is both the murderer and the tomb. This context changes everything. It means we are not searching for a city that simply got lost, but for a metropolis that was actively swallowed by a changing world. Its fate is a stark, ancient warning of how fragile our own civilizations can be when the environment upon which they depend begins to shift. And if we accept that a great city once stood there, a question demands an answer. Who were the people with the knowledge and the vision to build it in the first place? The legends finally left the pages of ancient books and spurred real men into a sea of sand. The early 20th century saw the dawn of a new kind of quest, driven not by treasure hunters but by a mix of romantic adventurers and determined scholars. One name stands out, Laszlo Almasi, a Hungarian aristocrat and aviator whose life story was so extraordinary it later inspired a famous novel and film. Almasi was utterly captivated by the Zazora legend, and he dedicated years of his life to scouring the most desolate parts of the Libyan desert. He was not searching for gold, but for the ghost of a city, for the truth behind the stories of stone birds and forgotten kings. His expeditions were epic undertakings of endurance. Imagine crossing hundreds of miles of trackless dunes with only a camel caravan for support, navigating by the sun and stars, with the constant threat of sandstorms and dwindling water supplies. These pioneers were literally feeling their way into the blank spaces on the map, and they did not return empty-handed. Almasy and his contemporaries documented strange stone structures half buried in the sand. They found primitive tools and pottery shards in places no one was supposed to have ever lived. They brought back tantalizing accounts of wadis, dry river valleys, that hinted at a time when water had flowed there. Their reports, published in the journals of the Royal Geographical Society, were seismic. They provided the first tangible proof that the deep desert was not, and had never been, entirely empty. These men were the bridge between myth and science. They did not uncover a gleaming metropolis with their own hands, but they accomplished something perhaps more important. They provided the coordinates, the rough sketches of where to look. They transformed the lost city from a pure fantasy into a legitimate archaeological problem, a puzzle waiting for the right tools to be solved. Their legacy was a trail of breadcrumbs, leading from their campfires under the desert stars directly to the high-tech searches of the modern era. The desert's secrets began to surface from an impossible distance, not from the sands below, but from the silent void of space. The age of the lone explorer gave way to the era of the satellite, a technological leap that fundamentally rewrote the rules of archaeological discovery. Instead of relying on camel caravans and guesswork, scientists could now survey millions of square miles of the most hostile terrain on Earth without ever leaving their labs. High-resolution cameras and sophisticated sensors on platforms like lands peer straight through the superficial layer of sand, revealing what lies just beneath. These instruments detect subtle variations in soil moisture and mineral composition, invisible to the human eye. From hundreds of miles overhead, they can spot the ghostly imprint of a buried wall or the faint geometric outline of a forgotten foundation. What looks like a featureless plain from the ground is often a complex archaeological site when viewed from orbit. The sand that once hid everything has become semi-transparent. This is the science of satellite archaeology, and it has turned the entire Sahara into an open book. The data reveals more than just buildings. It can map the paleo-drainage systems, the long dried-up rivers and ancient lakebeds that once sustained life. These long-vanished waterways are like faded lines on a forgotten map, leading us directly to the places where a civilization would have logically built its cities. Where there was water, there was life, and where there was life, there were structures. This technology transforms the search from a hopeful trek into a targeted investigation. The vast, empty quarter of the desert is no longer an impenetrable mystery, but a grid of potential, each anomaly a red flag marking a place where the past is begging to be uncovered. These digital surveys are our new treasure maps, but the treasure is not gold, it is truth. And the most stunning truth of all emerged when one of these satellite surveys led researchers to a specific, remote location in the Sudanese Sahara, a place that would come to be known as the Gala Abu Ahmed fortress. The true breakthrough came not from a sprawling city, but from a single, sheltered cave. In the rocky massifs of Libya, archaeologists uncovered a site known as Muogeg. It was a rock shelter, not a metropolis, but what they found inside was nothing short of revolutionary. Here, preserved in the dry desert air, were the mummified remains of a child. This was not just an ancient burial, it was a meticulously prepared mummy, its body treated with resins and carefully wrapped in animal skin. The stunning part is its age, dating back more than 5,500 years. This predates the earliest known Egyptian mummies by centuries. This single fact alone shatters a long-held belief. We have been taught that the art of mummification, this complex spiritual and scientific practice, was essentially invented by the ancient Egyptians. But here was clear physical proof that another culture, deep in the heart of the Sahara, had developed its own advanced preservation techniques entirely independently. The walls of the shelter told the rest of the story. Vivid rock art depicted a life of abundance, showing herds of majestic cattle and scenes of pastoral life. This was not the art of nomadic hunter-gatherers, but of a settled, organized society with a deep connection to their animals and their land. Juan Muogeg proves that sophisticated cultures were not just passing through the Green Sahara, they were thriving there. They had complex spiritual beliefs about death and the afterlife. They possessed the technical knowledge to preserve human remains for an incredible duration, and they lived a stable, pastoral life. This site is a powerful proxy. It shows us the cultural height that was possible in this region. If a single rock shelter could reveal such advanced practices, what level of achievement might a major population center, a true city, have reached? The existence of a place like Zazora shifts from a fringe theory to a plausible, even likely, historical reality. This discovery rewrites the map of early civilization. We can no longer view the world through the old lens that placed the cradle of civilization solely along the Nile or the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. A third pillar of human development was standing tall in the center of a green Africa, a civilization that has simply been erased from view by the very sands that once sustained it. So who were these master builders, and what other secrets did they leave behind? So who were the architects of this lost world? Historical records point to one particularly advanced society as the prime candidates for our mysterious builders, the Garamantes. For centuries, they were dismissed as the barbarians the Romans made them out to be, mere desert raiders. But modern archaeology has revealed a stunning truth. The Garamantes were a sophisticated Berber people who established a powerful kingdom in what is now Libya, flourishing for over 1,000 years. They were not primitive nomads, they were city builders, engineers, and masters of their harsh environment. Roman historians like Herodotus wrote of them with a mixture of fear and grudging respect, describing a people who rode in chariots to hunt their cave-dwelling enemies, and who controlled the flow of gold, salt, and slaves across the desert. They were the gatekeepers of the Sahara. Their most astonishing achievement was not their warfare, but their war against the desert itself. They engineered a vast network of underground tunnels, known as Foggara, to tap into ancient fossil water reserves trapped deep beneath the sand. This was not a few simple wells, it was a complex hydraulic system that stretched for hundreds of miles, bringing life to a dying land. These tunnels allowed them to cultivate crops in a place where rain might not fall for years, sustaining a population that would have been impossible otherwise. Their capital, Garama, was a true urban center, a city of mud, brick, and stone with public buildings, tombs, and a distinct culture. While the ruins of Garama are known to us, it stands as proof of concept. It demonstrates unequivocally that a powerful, indigenous African civilization possessed the knowledge, the organization, and the sheer will to build a metropolis in the heart of the desert. This makes the legend of a grander, older city not just plausible but probable. Perhaps Zazora was not Garama itself, but an earlier, even more magnificent capital, a mother city whose memory outlived its physical destruction. The story of the Garamantes provides the vital historical framework, a real people of immense capability who could have created the very kind of forgotten marvel we seek. They were not mythical giants or people from a lost continent. They were an African civilization that reached a zenith and then, like the water they depended on, simply ran out. The architectural language of this lost civilization was written in stone and earth. To understand what we are searching for, we must learn to read the subtle grammar of their constructions, a design philosophy born from a direct and brutal negotiation with the desert. The most enduring legacy of builders like the Garamantes is not found in gold or treasure, but in their ingenious use of the most humble material available, mud brick. This was not a sign of poverty, but of profound intelligence. Mud brick, formed from the very earth beneath their feet, provided superb thermal mass. It absorbed the scorching heat of the day, keeping interiors cool, and slowly released that stored warmth during the cold desert nights. Their walls were thick, not just for defense, but as a natural climate control system, creating a stable, livable environment within. This was architecture in perfect conversation with its surroundings. We can expect the lost city to follow this same logic, its structures low and sprawling, built to deflect the wind and conserve energy, appearing almost as organic extensions of the landscape itself. But their true mastery lay in defying the desert's greatest threat, the absence of water. The Foggara systems were just the beginning. The entire city would have been a giant, engineered catchment device. Think of every rooftop, every courtyard, and every street subtly angled to channel the precious, infrequent rainfall into a network of underground cisterns. These were not simple holes in the ground, but carefully plastered reservoirs, sealed against evaporation, that could hold a year's supply of water or more. This was a society that did not just endure the drought, they planned for it on a monumental scale. Their urban layout would have reflected a deep, almost intuitive understanding of the sun's path. Streets were likely narrow and winding, not out of disorganization, but to create long shadows and cooling corridors, a practice still seen in ancient desert towns today. The placement of major buildings would have been calculated for optimal solar exposure, minimizing heat gain in the summer and maximizing it in the winter. And what of their art? If we are ever fortunate enough to find a wall still standing, we might see it adorned with carvings of animals that have not set foot in the region for millennia. Giraffes stretching their long necks, elephants with massive tusks, and herds of great antelope could be frozen in stone, a silent memorial to the green world they once knew. This was not haphazard construction. It was the work of specialized minds, of engineers who understood hydrology, masons who perfected their craft, and urban planners who thought in generations. Every wall, every cistern, every aligned street was a statement of defiance, an attempt to carve permanence out of a world that was increasingly defined by change. To find their city is to find the physical manifestation of that will, a testament to human ingenuity written in the very language of the sand. The silence of the desert is not complete, for the stones themselves are covered in writing. Scattered across the Sahara are thousands of rock faces bearing inscriptions, a vast open-air library left by ancient hands. Many of these carvings are in scripts we can read, like Tifainog, the elegant alphabet of the Berber people. Yet other markings remain stubbornly mysterious, a collection of symbols and signs that have resisted all attempts at translation. These undeciphered scripts are the ghostly whispers of a lost language, a system of communication that may have died with the civilization that created it. They are the most direct link we have to the minds of the builders, a code waiting to be broken. Imagine the moment archaeologists uncover a steel or a clay tablet within the walls of a lost city. It would not be a simple list of kings or a mundane inventory, but a window into a complete worldview. We could finally read their history in their own words, understand their laws, and even hear the rhythm of their poetry. This would be the Rosetta Stone of the Sahara, a single key capable of unlocking a library of lost knowledge. It would transform these people from anonymous figures we simply study into complex individuals we can begin to understand. They would cease to be subjects and become storytellers, sharing their fears, their triumphs, and their perspective on a world that was slowly turning to dust. This quest to give them a voice is a race against the relentless desert. Wind and sand slowly scour the surfaces of these ancient texts, erasing them letter by letter. Worse still is the threat of looting and unchecked development, which can destroy a priceless inscription in an afternoon. Each faded symbol that vanishes is another sentence lost from their story forever. The great hope is that the deep desert, which has hidden the city for so long, has also protected its most precious treasures. The stones are waiting to speak, if we can only learn to listen before their final words are carried away on the wind. A city of such scale could not have thrived in isolation. Its lifeblood was commerce, a constant flow of goods and ideas along routes that stitched together continents. During the Green Sahara period, a sophisticated web of trade arteries stretched from the lush heart of Central Africa all the way to the bustling ports of the Mediterranean. The lost city was not a lonely outpost, but a pulsating hub at the very center of this network. Its wealth and power were not born from the soil, but from its strategic position, its ability to control and tax the movement of the ancient world's most coveted commodities. Imagine caravans not of camels yet, but of donkeys and ox carts, winding their way through a savanna, laden with heavy slabs of salt from the northern deposits, gleaming gold dust from southern rivers, and priceless tusks of ivory. This was the economic engine that built the city's walls and filled its granaries. The true evidence of this trade is not just in the grand accounts of gold, but in the small, everyday objects. Archaeologists can trace the city's economic reach by following the trail of distinctive pottery styles, unique glass beads, and specific types of stone tools. If a particular style of clay pot made only in this central city is found in a settlement 1,000 miles to the north, that is a clear marker of trade, a silent witness to a merchant's long journey. The city's influence would have been magnetic, drawing not just goods but people. Artisans from distant cultures would have settled in its districts, bringing new techniques in metalworking or weaving. Scholars and storytellers would have exchanged knowledge in its squares. This was a place of cultural fusion, all catalyzed by trade. Its sudden disappearance would have been an economic earthquake. Trade routes would have collapsed, causing shortages of salt in the south and a scarcity of gold in the north. Kingdoms that relied on this flow of wealth would have faltered. The city's decline did not just erase a place from the map, it rewired the entire economy of ancient North Africa, shifting political power and leaving a void that would take centuries to fill. By understanding its role as a commercial titan, we can begin to estimate its true size and global significance. The artifacts scattered across the desert are not just discarded trash, they are the faded receipts of a vast, interconnected economy, the last echoes of a marketplace that once echoed with the voices of an entire world. We can now reconstruct the city's final days not through legend, but through the hard data of climate science. Computer models of the Sahara's past paint a devastatingly clear picture of a slow-motion societal collapse. As the rains failed century after century, the city's vast agricultural hinterlands would have been the first to suffer. The fields that once fed thousands began to yield less and less, each harvest more meager than the last. Food shortages would have become a constant, gnawing fear, leading to rising prices, social unrest, and a desperate competition for dwindling resources. The very foundation of their society was crumbling beneath their feet. At the same time, their engineered water systems began to fail. the intricate network of Foggara tunnels, which tapped into ancient underground aquifers, would have faced a terminal problem. They were mining fossil water, a resource that does not replenish. As the water table dropped, the tunnels ran dry. The great cisterns, once brimming with a year's supply, stood empty, their plaster linings cracking under a relentless sun. The city's brilliant hydraulic engineering, the source of its life for generations, was now a monument to a lost abundance. Paleoclimatology models show that this process was not a smooth, gentle decline. It was punctuated by extreme events, by decades-long droughts that would have pushed the civilization to the brink, and then came the final, suffocating act. Imagine a series of dust storms of unimaginable scale, a continental dust bowl that lasted for years. These were not mere sandstorms, but towering walls of fine, choking dust born from the expanding desert, a product of the now barren and exposed topsoil. They would have blotted out the sun for weeks at a time, smothering everything in a fine, abrasive powder. The models suggest these mega storms could have deposited meters of sand in a relatively short period, burying streets, clogging waterways, and rendering the land utterly sterile. The population faced an impossible choice: stay and suffocate, or leave everything behind. This would have triggered a desperate, disorganized exodus, a tragic migration away from a home that could no longer support life. The city did not vanish in a single cataclysm, but through a relentless, grinding pressure that made every breath a struggle and every day a battle against the inevitable. The geological record holds the proof of this slow burial, layer upon layer of sand silently telling the story of a metropolis that simply ran out of time. The stones may have been silenced, but the people remember. The cultural legacy of the lost builders did not vanish into the sand. It found refuge in the living traditions of the modern Sahara. The Tuareg, the nomadic blue people known for their indigo robes and deep knowledge of the desert, are likely the direct descendants of those ancient engineers. Their very existence is a testament to the resilience that was first forged in the city's final, desperate days. We can see echoes of the lost world in the intricate designs of their silver jewelry, in the geometric patterns woven into their textiles, and in the hypnotic rhythms of their music. These are not just decorations, they are a cultural memory, an artistic language passed from mother to daughter, from father to son, for countless generations. The precise spiral on a Tuareg cross might be a stylized representation of a long-vanished oasis spring. The repetitive diamond pattern on a woven blanket could be a map of the city's ancient irrigation canals, transformed into art. Their epic poems and oral histories, sung around campfires under the same stars their ancestors knew, often speak of a mythical homeland, a land of plenty lost to the advancing dunes. These stories are more than fantasy, they are a pale, inherited memory of the Green Sahara, a world their forebears were forced to abandon. Even the names on the land hold clues. The ancient names for mountains, wells, and valleys, passed down in the Berber languages, can sometimes be traced to words meaning the place of the Great Lake or the river that ran dry. By carefully studying these living cultures, we are not merely looking at the past from a distance. We are witnessing a continuum, an unbroken thread of human experience stretching back millennia. The builders of the lost city are not entirely forgotten. Their spirit endures in the proud bearing of a Tuareg camel rider, in the skilled hands of a jeweler, and in the timeless songs that still drift across the empty sands. They adapted to survive the collapse of their world, and in doing so, they ensured that a part of their civilization would live on, not in stone, but in the soul of a people. The legend of a city vanishing beneath the desert shares a powerful echo with stories told across the world. Plato's account of Atlantis, a mighty island empire that sank into the ocean in a single day and night, is the most famous parallel. Both narratives describe a people of immense wealth and knowledge, a society that reached a peak of power only to be crushed for its hubris, its entire world erased by a cataclysm of earth or water. This pattern is not unique to the Mediterranean. In India, ancient texts speak of the golden city of Dwarka, built by a god and swallowed by the rising sea. Across the Atlantic, the Aztecs told of Aztlan, a mythical homeland from which they migrated, a place lost to time and memory. These are not coincidences but reflections of a deep, shared human experience. Our minds are wired to process trauma through story, and the collapse of a great civilization is a trauma that reverberates for millennia. The specifics change, the gods have different names, and the element of destruction shifts from water to sand, but the core narrative remains hauntingly consistent, an archetype written into our collective consciousness. This universal story structure helps us separate the psychological truth from the historical one. The fear of divine punishment is a common explanation for the unexplainable, a way to make sense of a disaster that feels too vast to be random. But for our Saharan city, we can replace the anger of the gods with the hard, verifiable data of a changing climate. The story of Atlantis is a philosophical allegory, but the story of the lost Saharan metropolis is an environmental case study. One is a cautionary tale about human morality, the other is a forensic report on societal fragility. By placing our lost city within this global tapestry of fallen civilizations, we see it not as an isolated mystery, but as a specific, tangible example of a recurring historical tragedy. It becomes the Sahara's unique contribution to this ancient, sobering genre, a story where the legend of Atlantis meets the reality of shifting sand and dying wells. The human voice can be a more durable vessel for history than stone. Without a written language to call their own, the Saharan nomads perfected the art of memory, entrusting their entire past to a living chain of storytellers. These individuals, known as griots among some peoples and simply as revered elders in others, are not mere entertainers. They are the custodians of their people's soul, walking archives trained from childhood to memorize vast epic poems, intricate genealogies, and the precise accounts of events that transpired centuries ago. Their recitations are the library of the desert, a library that moves, breathes, and speaks. Within this vast oral catalogue, the legend of the lost city holds a special place, a story told with a particular tone of reverence and loss. The narrative is not frozen in time like text on a page. It breathes and adapts with each generation, the core of the story remaining intact while the details might shift to reflect the world of the current listeners. A description of a king's wealth might be updated to include modern concepts of value, but the king's name, his great deed, and the city's fate remain sacred, unchangeable facts. This is how history survives when there is no paper, through a sacred covenant between the teller and the tale. Modern researchers now sit respectfully in tents, recording these ancient narratives with digital audio equipment. They are in a race against time, as globalization and modern media threaten to sever this fragile thread to the past. The work of these ethnographers is not to take the stories at face value, but to listen like detectives. A single, seemingly fantastical line in a 1,000-year-old song might describe a building with walls that gathered the morning dew. To an archaeologist, this is not a magical detail, but a potential clue to an advanced water catchment system, a real technology that could explain how a city thrived in an aridifying landscape. A place name repeated in a poem, a name that no longer appears on any map, can give surveyors a specific location to search. The story of a great exodus to a mountain range in the west could map the actual migration routes of the city's survivors. These oral histories are a fragile, shimmering bridge across the centuries. They are the intangible heritage of a people, proof that a civilization is not truly gone as long as its story is still told. The stones may be buried, but the echo of the city's name, whispered on the wind for generations, is the most tenacious clue of all, a stubborn refusal to be forgotten. The true genius of the desert builders was not written in stone, but in water. Their mastery of hydraulics transformed a hostile landscape into a livable one, and the most breathtaking evidence of this is the Foggara. These were not simple wells, but vast, subterranean networks of gently sloping tunnels, engineered to tap into ancient fossil water trapped deep beneath the mountains. The principle was elegant yet required immense skill. A mother well would be dug deep into a water-bearing aquifer in the highlands. From there, a tunnel was carved with a precise, gradual descent, sometimes for many miles, allowing gravity to pull the water silently and efficiently to the low-lying fields and settlements below, all while protecting the precious liquid from the evaporating desert sun. The construction of a single Foggara was a monumental undertaking that speaks volumes about the society that built it. It required a deep, sophisticated understanding of geology to locate the aquifers and of hydrology to calculate the perfect slope. Too steep and the water would flow too fast, eroding the tunnel walls. Too flat and the water would stagnate and fail to reach its destination. This was not the work of a few farmers. It demanded a centralized authority with the power to organize and feed a specialized workforce of surveyors, engineers, and diggers for years, even generations. It required a society capable of long-term planning on a scale we can scarcely comprehend, investing immense labor into a project whose full benefits might not be realized for decades. The fact that this technology appears in the Sahara, so far from its origins in ancient Persia, is itself a clue. It points to a web of exchanged knowledge, proving these were not isolated people, but connected to the wider technological currents of the ancient world. If the lost city supported a large, concentrated population, its survival would have hinged on a system even more ambitious than those we have already found. While the grand buildings have crumbled, the bones of this hydraulic system may still be there. The desert floor holds subtle traces of this forgotten network. From the air or with ground-penetrating radar, the lines of collapsed tunnels and the periodic vertical access shafts, now filled with sand, appear as faint scars on the landscape. These ghostly impressions are the civilization's most durable signature, a testament to their war against the desert, written not in grand monuments, but in the silent, enduring logic of water and gravity. A broken piece of pottery is more than just a shard of clay. It is a personal diary written in form and function. When archaeologists carefully piece these fragments together, they are reading the story of a meal, a market, and a family. The thickness and shape of a cooking pot tell us what kind of food was prepared and how it was simmered over a fire. A finely painted, thin-walled vessel was not for daily use. It was for display, perhaps to serve guests or as part of a ceremonial offering, speaking directly to social rituals and a desire for beauty. The very clay itself holds chemical secrets, a mineral fingerprint that can often be traced to a specific source. If a pot found in the lost city is made from clay that only exists in a region 500 miles away, that is not a simple object. It is a map of a trade route and a testament to the city's far-reaching economic connections. These humble containers were the plastic and Tupperware of their day, and their shattered remains chart the flow of goods and ideas across a continent. Alongside the pottery, we find the tools that turned raw ingredients into sustenance. A simple grinding stone, worn smooth in the center from years of use, tells a story of daily labor. We can almost hear the rhythmic scrape as a woman ground grain into flour, the foundation of every loaf of bread that fed her family. The type of grain, whether it was a hardy native millet or an imported wheat, reveals their agricultural sophistication and their diet. A stone blade, carefully chipped to a sharp edge, could have been used for everything from harvesting stalks to butchering meat. These are not the tools of kings, but the instruments of survival, each one a quiet testament to the skill and routine that defined existence. The true magic of these artifacts is their universality. A child's toy, a small clay animal figurine, connects us across the millennia. We recognize the impulse to play, to create, to bring a moment of joy to a young life. A broken comb carved from bone or wood is a deeply personal object. It speaks to a concern for appearance, for grooming, for the simple human desire to feel presentable. These are the objects that great civilizations are built upon, not in their monuments, but in their kitchens and their courtyards. They give us a glimpse of the laughter in a home, the smell of baking bread, and the weariness at the end of a long day. They remind us that this was not just a city, it was a collection of individual lives, each with their own hopes and struggles. And just as these objects reveal the texture of daily life, they also point toward the city's ultimate vulnerability, a fragility rooted in the very environment they so brilliantly engineered. A city's death is rarely a simple story. Climate change set the stage, but the final act could have been written by war, plague, or a desperate collective decision to leave. While the desert advanced, human forces may have delivered the final, crushing blows. Could a brutal civil war have shattered the city from within? As resources grew scarce, the social contract would have frayed. The ruling class, once seen as divinely appointed providers, might have been viewed as hoarding the last reserves of water and grain. The archaeology of social collapse is written in fire. If we find a palace district burned, its treasures looted not by foreign invaders but from the inside, that points to a violent uprising, a revolution of the desperate. Alternatively, the very trade routes that enriched the city could have been its undoing in a different way. A devastating epidemic, an ancient pandemic carried by merchants along those same profitable paths, could have swept through the crowded streets. A mass grave filled not with the marks of warfare but with skeletons piled hastily together would tell a silent story of a population decimated by disease, a society too weakened to even bury its dead with care. Then there is the threat from outside. The Roman Empire was expanding relentlessly southward, and other Saharan kingdoms vied for control of the dwindling trade. Did a powerful army lay siege to the city, cutting off its already precarious water supply until surrender was the only option? The discovery of makeshift fortifications, of arrowheads embedded in outer walls, or of weapons from a distant culture would signal a death in combat. Yet another possibility is more sorrowful and deliberate. Perhaps there was no single catastrophe. The city's end might have been a managed retreat, a heartbreakingly organized exodus. As the environment became untenable, the elders and engineers could have made the calculated choice to abandon their home. They would have systematically packed what they could carry, sealed their homes as if expecting to return, and led the people out in a slow, solemn procession toward rumors of water elsewhere. This theory leaves a distinct archaeological signature, one of orderly abandonment rather than violent destruction. Homes would be found empty but intact, prized heirlooms carefully taken, with only the heaviest, most mundane objects left behind. Each of these theories, environmental, social, military, or migratory, paints a different final chapter. Uncovering which one is true, or more likely, which combination of these horrors actually occurred, is the work of forensic history. The sand holds the evidence, waiting to reveal whether the last sound echoing through the city's streets was the clash of swords, the silence of plague, or the determined, mournful footsteps of a people walking away from everything they had ever built. A laser pulse fired from an aircraft can map the ground with an accuracy of a few centimeters, stripping away the veil of sand and scrub to reveal the Earth's hidden contours. This is LIDAR technology, and it is fundamentally rewriting the rules of archaeology. By measuring the time it takes for millions of these laser pulses to bounce back from the surface, scientists can create a digital skin of the planet, a high-definition map that shows not what is on the ground, but the ground itself. In a landscape like the Sahara, where structures were built from the very earth they stand on, LIDAR can detect the faintest rise of a collapsed wall, the subtle depression of a filled-in irrigation canal, or the geometric perfection of a building's foundation, all invisible from the ground or even standard satellite imagery. It is the closest we have ever come to having X-ray vision for an entire landscape. Once these ghostly outlines are identified, the next step is to bring them back to life. Using the precise data from LIDAR and other surveys, digital artists and archaeologists collaborate to build photorealistic three-dimensional models of the city. This is not guesswork, it is a scientific reconstruction based on everything we know about Saharan architecture and engineering. You could put on a virtual reality headset and stand in the central plaza, looking up at the mud brick buildings designed to deflect the desert wind. You could walk through the narrow, shaded streets and see how the angles were calculated to capture the morning sun in winter and provide cooling shade in summer. This virtual time machine allows researchers to test theories in a way that was never before possible. How would water flow through these streets during a rare rainstorm? Does the layout of the building support a specific social structure? We can run these simulations without ever touching a fragile, ancient stone. Meanwhile, drones buzz overhead like mechanical dragonflies, capturing thousands of high-resolution images that are stitched together into detailed orthomosaic maps. These maps monitor sites for erosion or looting, providing a constant, watchful eye over our fragile heritage. These tools, LIDAR, 3D modeling, and drones, are not replacing archaeologists, they are arming them. They transform the search from a slow, grueling excavation into a targeted, precise investigation. The desert has kept its secrets for thousands of years, but technology is finally giving us the language to ask the right questions and the patience to listen for the answers rising silently from the sand. The thrill of uncovering a lost city is matched only by the profound responsibility that follows. That first breach of the sand, the first glimpse of a wall unseen for millennia, is a moment of incredible fragility. The very environment that preserved this place, the dry, sterile desert air, becomes its greatest enemy the moment the seal is broken. Organic treasures that have survived for thousands of years, delicate textiles, wooden tools, even the remnants of ancient meals, can crumble to dust in a matter of hours when exposed to modern humidity and oxygen. This is why the modern archaeologist's toolkit includes more than brushes and trowels. It includes a team of conservators, scientists who specialize in stabilizing these fragile materials the instant they emerge from the earth. They are the first responders working against an invisible clock to ensure these whispers of daily life do not vanish before our eyes. But the ethical questions run even deeper than preservation science. Who does this history truly belong to? The answer is unequivocal. The artifacts, the site, and the story are the cultural patrimony of the nation where it lies and the descendant communities whose ancestors built it. This is not a treasure hunt for foreign museums or private collectors. It is a collaborative effort to reclaim a shared human heritage, the legacy of colonial-era archaeology, where priceless objects were extracted without context or consent, is a shadow the field consciously works to escape. Every object removed from its resting place loses a layer of its story, its connection to the soil that held it. this understanding has led to a fundamental shift in methodology. The goal is no longer to simply dig, but to learn with the lightest possible touch. Ground-penetrating radar and small core samples act like medical scanners, allowing researchers to diagnose the site, to map its layout and understand its history without major surgery. Large-scale excavation is a last resort, not a first step, because an excavated site is a destroyed site, a non-renewable resource gone forever. The true purpose is not merely to fill display cases, but to piece together the narrative of a people with meticulous care and deep respect, ensuring their story is told with integrity for generations yet to come, long after the sands have settled once more. A discovery of this magnitude would ripple far beyond academic journals, transforming the very landscape of the region. Unearthing a lost Saharan metropolis could create a cultural phenomenon, a Pompeii of the Sahara that draws global attention. For the host nation, this represents an unprecedented opportunity. Remote desert communities, often on the economic periphery, could see an influx of investment, new roads, and modern infrastructure, all spurred by a surge in scientific tourism. Jobs would be created not just in hospitality, but in conservation, research, and security, offering a powerful alternative to the economic struggles that define many arid regions. This is not just about tourism, it is about building a new future upon the foundations of a rediscovered past. Yet this potential windfall carries a significant risk. An unmanaged flood of visitors could be catastrophic. The fragile mud brick walls, preserved for millennia in dry isolation, could be damaged by the humidity of thousands of breaths and the vibration of countless footsteps. The silent, sacred atmosphere of the desert could be shattered by the noise of unchecked development. The very essence of the site, the thing that makes it priceless, could be loved to death. The solution lies in a model of sustainability from the very beginning. This means training and employing the local Tuareg and Berber communities as the primary guardians of their own heritage. Who better to guide visitors through the desert and share the stories of the city than those whose own ancestors may have built it? They can become site guardians, research assistants, and cultural interpreters, ensuring the economic benefits are woven directly into the local social fabric. This approach transforms the local population from bystanders into stakeholders, instilling a powerful sense of ownership and pride. The lost city could then evolve into a living center for education and cultural exchange, a place where the world comes to learn not only about a forgotten civilization, but also from the living cultures that succeeded it. This new chapter would not be an invasion, but a renaissance, turning a symbol of ancient collapse into a modern engine for resilient and equitable prosperity, ensuring the city's second life is as enduring as its first was fleeting. Solving the riddle of this vanished metropolis demands a fusion of minds, where the boundaries between science and history blur into a single, unified investigation. No single expert holds the master key. Instead, a team of specialists, each with a unique lens, must work in concert to reassemble the fragments of this lost world. The geologist does not simply study rocks. They read the desert's autobiography, extracted in long, cylindrical cores of ancient sediment. These layered samples are like tree rings for the entire landscape, preserving a timeline of when the rains failed and the dust storms began, providing the physical evidence for the environmental collapse. Meanwhile, the historian sits in a climate-controlled archive, their work a world away from the scorching dunes. They are linguistic detectives, scrutinizing every faded line in a medieval manuscript, not for myths, but for the subtle, passing references to trade goods, to caravan routes, and to the names of forgotten kings that might suddenly align with a discovery in the field. The anthropologist connects the ancient to the living, studying the social structures and material culture of the Tuareg and other Berber peoples. By understanding how these descendant communities organize their lives, manage scarce water, and pass down knowledge, we gain a living model, a template for how their ancestors might have structured their own society. Even the humble botanist plays a crucial role, identifying microscopic grains of fossilized pollen trapped in the mud brick of a collapsed wall. A single type of grass pollen can reveal what crops were cultivated, while tree pollen tells us what species provided shade and building material, allowing us to paint a detailed portrait of the vanished oasis environment. And if the city's builders truly did read the stars, astronomers can analyze the alignment of any surviving structures, checking to see if a doorway or a ceremonial platform was precisely oriented to the solstice sunrise or a significant constellation, revealing their cosmic worldview. This is the new gold standard of exploration, a collaborative symphony where the geologist's climate data gives context to the historian's text, and the anthropologist's insights give meaning to the botanist's pollen. Each discipline holds a single piece of the grand puzzle. Alone, it is just a curious fragment, but when fitted together with patience and dialogue, these pieces begin to form a breathtaking picture of the city's rise, its daily life, and its tragic fall, reclaiming a forgotten chapter of human ambition from the silence of the sands. Even with all our technology and knowledge, the desert guards its deepest secrets. We have pieced together a compelling story of a civilization that rose and fell, yet the most fundamental questions about these people remain stubbornly unanswered. The greatest mystery of all is what they called themselves. The name Zerzura comes from Tuareg legend and the city of brass from Arab chroniclers, but these are labels given by outsiders. The true name of the metropolis, the name its citizens spoke with pride, is lost to us. Without that name, we cannot search for it in the records of other civilizations. Did the Egyptians mention them in their hieroglyphs? Did the traders from Carthage record their name on a clay tablet? We simply do not know, and until we do, a vital part of their identity remains just out of reach. This leads directly to another enigma, the puzzle of their communication. We have found those mysterious, undeciphered scripts carved on Saharan rocks. Were these simple property marks, or were they the components of a full written language? If they possessed a written word, what stories did it tell? We could finally read their laws, understand their poetry, and hear their own account of why their world turned to dust. A single clay tablet or a stele uncovered within the city walls would be the ultimate key, a Rosetta Stone for the Sahara that could unlock their entire history in their own voice. Their spiritual life is another vast unknown. Did they worship gods of the sun and rain, desperately pleading with deities to hold back the desert? Or did they revere ancestors, believing their spirits resided in the very stones of the city? The absence of obvious, large temples does not mean they lacked religion, only that their beliefs may have been expressed in ways we have not yet recognized. Perhaps their entire city was a sacred landscape, with streets aligned to the stars and water channels designed as religious offerings to the earth. Were they an isolated kingdom, a lone beacon in a vast land? Or were they a major player, known to and feared by the contemporary powers of Egypt, Nubia, and even the Mediterranean world? The sheer scale of their hydraulic engineering suggests a level of sophistication that could only have been achieved through the exchange of ideas. It is difficult to believe they developed in a complete vacuum. Trade goods could prove this connection, but so far the evidence is fragmentary. The most tantalizing question of all hangs over every expedition. Is the city still out there, a metropolis frozen in time beneath a dune, its buildings and artifacts perfectly preserved by the dry sand, waiting for one lucky stroke of a trowel? Or has a piece of it already been found, its true significance missed by explorers who did not have the full picture. Perhaps the scattered ruins we have already attributed to smaller settlements are actually the outlying districts of the great city itself, its heart still hidden. These are not just academic puzzles, they are the fuel that drives every researcher back into the desert, that keeps satellite analysts scanning endless images, and that inspires local communities to protect their heritage. They are a powerful reminder that history is not a closed book filled with settled facts, but a dynamic, living field of inquiry. A single discovery, one inscribed stone or one perfectly preserved building, could rewrite entire chapters of human history overnight, finally giving a name and a voice to the forgotten builders of the sand. The silent ruins beneath the Sahara hold a message for every civilization on Earth. This is not merely the story of one city's demise, it is a universal lesson written in sand and stone. Its history speaks directly to our own era of climate uncertainty, demonstrating with chilling clarity how environmental shifts can unravel the most sophisticated societies. A culture that mastered water and built a metropolis was ultimately defeated by the very world it sought to control. Their fate is a stark warning about the fragility of human achievement when the natural systems we depend upon begin to fail. This ancient collapse forces us to look at our own world and ask how secure our foundations truly are. Beyond the environmental parable, the lost city shatters a long-standing historical myth. For centuries, the narrative of civilization has been narrowly focused on the Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, and the Indus Valley. The discovery of a sophisticated, urban society in the heart of Africa fundamentally challenges this Eurocentric view. It proves that complex civilizations with advanced engineering and social organization emerged independently across the globe. The Sahara was not a barren void, but a cradle of indigenous innovation. This was an African achievement, a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of its people, whose story has been waiting patiently beneath the dunes for its rightful place in history. The city's life cycle reveals a pattern we see repeated across time and continents. Its rise was fueled by abundant resources and trade, its peak marked by incredible architectural and social complexity, and its fall triggered by a combination of environmental pressure and resource depletion. This is the universal rhythm of urbanization, a cycle of growth, stability, and contraction that has played out from the Maya to Mesopotamia. By studying how these ancient people managed their water, organized their labor, and ultimately faced their decline, we gain invaluable insights into the forces that build and destroy civilizations everywhere. The lost city becomes a case study in human resilience and vulnerability. It is a mirror reflecting our own potential for greatness and our capacity for blindness. It reminds us that the sands of time eventually claim all monuments, but the legacy of human ingenuity is not measured in the longevity of stone. It endures in the knowledge we create, the stories we tell, and the lessons we are wise enough to learn from those who walked before us. Our journey through the sands has reached its end, but the story itself is far from over. We began with the whispers of a Tuareg legend, a ghost city cradled by an oasis, and followed its echo into the dusty pages of medieval geographers. We witnessed the desert transform from a green paradise into a sea of dunes through the lens of climate science, and we traced the footsteps of early explorers who braved that emptiness armed with little more than a map of myths. From the skies, satellites peered through the sand, revealing the ghostly outlines of a forgotten world. We met the Garamantes, not as the barbarians of Roman propaganda, but as master engineers who built a kingdom with tunnels that defied the desert itself. Their sophisticated society, with its mummified dead and its intricate trade networks, stands as a powerful testament to human ingenuity. We have felt the weight of their collapse, a slow-moving catastrophe of failing rains and depleting aquifers that serves as a hauntingly familiar warning. This is more than an archaeological puzzle. It is a profound lesson in resilience and fragility. The lost city is a symbol of all the histories that have been written and then erased, a reminder that civilizations are not permanent, but the stories we tell about them can be. So the next time you feel the sun on your skin or see a landscape that seems timeless, look a little closer. History is not always found in museums. It is buried beneath our feet, hidden in the names of old rivers and carried on the wind in ancient songs. The Sahara has given up one of its great secrets, but it surely holds many more. If this journey into a forgotten world has sparked your curiosity, subscribe for more explorations into the lost corners of our past. We would love to hear which mystery you think we should uncover next, so share your thoughts in the comments below.